Welcome everyone to Political Paradigm. I am Terry Ikumi. Now, it's an interesting political season for us in Nigeria. The 2023 general elections have come and gone, but we now prepare for the off-season elections to hold in November this year. And also, the Tinubu administration is in full swing. These are some of the conversations that we will hold going forward on Political Paradigm. Today, my guest is a senator representing Borno North Senatorial District. He is also a former member of the House of Representatives. Specifically, he was in the 9th Assembly. He is a former chief whip of the 9th House of Representatives, Honorable, I'll have to get used to it, distinguished. He is now a senator, Senator Mohammed Monguno. Welcome to Political Paradigm.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
You see, I have to struggle with that. You've only been in the Senate for a few days, but you spent quite a while. You spent 5 terms, I believe, in the House of Representatives. So I should start off the conversation by saying congratulations. And how's it been in this past few days as a senator?
Well, thank you for the congratulations and best wishes. It is really very exciting. And it's a dream come true.
Is there a difference in experience from being a senator and that of a House of Representatives member?
Well, practically, there is no difference as such, because the process of lawmaking in the Senate and the House of Representatives are virtually the same. But the only difference is in terms of environment and the type of people that you are going to relate with. While in the House of Representatives, it consists of young people with all the youthful exuberance and then the vibrancy of youthfulness and what have you. In the Senate, it consists of elders, former governors, former ministers, former ambassadors, and what have you. In fact, at 57, I will be among some of the youngest amongst the senators. So it is the environment that is completely different. While in the Senate, you are dealing with elders, people that have reached the pinnacle of their career, people that have retired from public service and are now in politics, and what have you. So it's the environment and the people that you relate with, that is the difference. But in terms of process of lawmaking and what have you, it's virtually the same.
Absolutely. You know, the House of Representatives is closer to the people than the Senate. And so I'm curious to find out from you. You were a member of the House of Representatives in 1992. You came back to the House of Representatives in 2007. You've been there. You were there till this year when you crossed over to the Senate. So what informed your decision to move from the House of Representatives to the Senate, considering the fact that I know I've spoken with a lot of lawmakers who believe that the interactions they have with their constituents, because they are closer to them, and it's a smaller group of people they have to relate with compared to a senator who has to relate with an entire senatorial district. What informed your decision to go from the House to the Senate?
Well, what informed my decision to go from the House to the Senate is both personal and generality of clamor by the people of the senatorial district. One, during my tenure as a member of the House of Representatives, I have attracted a lot of developmental projects to my federal constituency, especially against the backdrop of the fact that my federal constituency was devastated as a result of the Boko Haram insurgency. Our economy is in a state of comatose. Our infrastructure has been completely destroyed. Our people has been displaced and what have you. So during my tenure as a member of the House of Representatives, I have attracted a lot of developmental projects of empowerment of youth and women who are displaced as a result of this insurgency but have now returned back to their communities to pick the pieces of their lives. I've embarked upon massive empowerment of youth and women, just like the Marshall Plan after the World War, of trying to rehabilitate, reconstruct our destroyed communities in the 3 local governments that constitute the federal constituency of Marte Mongunonganze that are represented for 5 terms. And then this federal constituency neighbors 2 other federal constituencies that constitute the senatorial district. And I was able to attract this laudable developmental projects, leveraging on my office as the chief whip of the House of Representatives. And that brought about the clamor from the generality of the senatorial district.
For you to come to the Senate.
For me to come to the Senate so that they can also get the benefits of dividends of democracy that I'm now bringing to my federal constituency. So there was a general clamor, a clarion call from all the nooks and crannies of the senatorial district for me to come to the Senate so that they can also enjoy the benefits of dividends of democracy that I've been bringing to my immediate federal. And then again, my ambition in life, as a human being, you have to have an ambition. My ambition in life is to earn the title senator before I retire from politics. That is my ambition all in life, is to earn that title. Even today, if I'm retired, I'm satisfied, I am an accomplished man. My life ambition is to be a senator. Coupled with these 2 reasons, I now coupled with the clamor by the larger senatorial districts to come and represent them in the Senate, and my own personal ambition of earning that title, Senator Mohamed Tahir Monguno, drove me to contest for the senatorial seat, and by the grace of God, I am in the Senate now.
I think it's interesting that those 2 reasons coincide, your ambition, rather, and then the reward system of a senatorial district. But that's a conversation for another day. But what you've said and how long you've spent at the National Assembly, you've done 1992, then 2007 till date, from the House of Representatives to the Senate. What then do you say to people who question why one lawmaker should continue to return when others could get the opportunity to represent their constituencies or senatorial districts?
I think the one advice that I will give Nigerians is that there is tremendous advantage of continuously returning
a lawmaker
either to the Senate or to the House. And this is purely as a result of the experience that you are going to gather over the years, serving either as a senator or as a member, will tremendously impact on how you are going to deliver dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of your people. So your ability to deliver is a function of how long you have stayed in the legislative house. This is what my experience has shown, and the experience of others have shown while staying in the National Assembly. Because the more you stay, the more you will know the nuances and the nitty-gritty of legislation and how you can find your way to attract developmental projects to your constituencies and what have you. But in Nigeria, unfortunately, because of the heterogeneous nature of our society and in the various divisions that we have in our society, that you will see today is the turn of local government A to go to the House of Reps, or tomorrow is the turn of local government B to go to the Senate. In fact, in some communities, it has cascaded down to clan representation, from this clan to the other clan. So
you think that rotational politics is not favorable?
Is not, at least in the National Assembly, is not favorable, because the more your representative returns to the National Assembly, the more he will be energized and have all the experience and the wherewithal to attract dividends of democracy to your constituency. But unfortunately in Borno State, particularly in my senatorial district, it is homogeneous in nature. We are one tribe, one religion. We are only divided into local governments and what have you because of constitutional demarcations and what have you. We are homogeneous in nature. So because of this, the issue of rotation from one local government to the other, ab initio,
but that's also dependent. But that's also dependent on how much impact the lawmaker would have on his constituency before he is deemed fit to return.
Yes. Apart from that, the lawmaker also has to be a lawmaker that is up and doing, a lawmaker that is responsible and responsive to the yearnings and aspirations of his people, a lawmaker that identifies with the wishes and aspirations of the people, that he regularly visits them, he identifies with them, he is part and parcel of them. That is also a factor that is going to attract how much or how many times a lawmaker is able to return to the National Assembly.
Senator Mongo, I want us to understand where the balance is between a federal lawmaker representing his constituency and making laws for the country. Because there are instances where a federal lawmaker would be doing well for his constituency, as you rightly put it, attracting projects and all that. But when it comes to national issues, he falls short and toes the line of politics. Where do we draw, or how do we balance such a thing? Because constituents that continue to return lawmakers to the National Assembly, where they make laws that are not favorable to the people, the generality of the people, is a problem.
Well, once you are elected a lawmaker, either as a senator or a member of the House of Representatives, you are a lawmaker for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And you have sworn to jealously guard and protect the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the grand norm of the land. So as such, in all your actions and activities, you should be guided by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and you should be pan-Nigerian in your outlooks, in your beliefs, and in what you are doing as a member of the National Assembly. You should not be restricted to the narrow interest of your constituency, but you should be there for the larger picture of the Nigerian nation state. So that is supposed to be your primary responsibility. But in doing that, you should not relegate the interests of your constituency that gave you the vote to represent them to the background. So you have to balance the two. First, you should consider yourself as a legislator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But in doing that, you should not relegate the interests of your primary constituency to the background. But where the interests of your constituency clashes or comes into conflict with the interests of the larger Nigerian society, then the interests of the larger Nigerian society should prevail over and above the narrow interests of your primary constituency, because you are sworn to jealously guard and protect and uphold the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and you are a lawmaker of Nigeria. You are a federal lawmaker.
All right, let's talk about your time pre-military, just before the return to democracy in 1999. You were in the House in 1992. What was it like being a member of Parliament in 1992 before the truncation?
Well, my experience as a member of the House of Representatives in 1992 and now it's a world of a difference. In the sense that during that time, we are operating a diarchy. A diarchy in the sense that this is a democratically elected legislature coexisting with a military, executive military dictatorship. And to the extent that during that point in time, the powers of the National Assembly to make laws was significantly restricted as a result of very draconian and obnoxious decree that was enacted by the military junta at that time of restricting the powers of the National Assembly to make laws only with regard to issues that are in the residual legislative list, not even in the concurrent legislative list, talk less of the exclusive legislative list, like matters concerning culture, antiquity, and whatever. That is the area that we're allowed to legislate on only. So compared to now, where we are now, the present dispensation, when we have a full-blown democracy, where the National Assembly can legislate on matters that are included in the exclusive legislative list, concurrent legislative list, and what have you. But then our powers were restricted because of this obnoxious and draconian decree that was enacted by the military junta at that point in time.
But then the influence, many say that the influence of the military in 1992 at the time is not much different from the influence of the executive as we have it now, especially because of how the leadership of the National Assembly emerges from time to time. It calls to question the independence of the legislature. And I say this because your colleagues have on several occasions said that National Assembly politics should be different from the conventional politics or the general politics that we play. And they believe that they should be allowed to decide who should emerge as leader. But that has not been the case with regards to especially in recent times, where the executive has decided who's turned out to be the Speaker and Senate President.
Well, there is no way one can compare the experience in 1992, where we have a military junta, as I said earlier on, superintending over a democratically elected legislature, to the extent of coming off with a very draconian and obnoxious decree of restricting the powers of the National Assembly, compared to now, when the National Assembly has all the powers of lawmaking for the peace, order, and good governance of this country. That is a world of a difference. With regard to influence of the executive in the emergence of the leadership of the National Assembly, I think not necessarily the executive arm of the government, but the party. It's the party that guides. It's not the executive arm of government. Because, for example, in the present case, the executive is also APC, while the majority of the members are also APC. So it is a guidance that is normally brought out by the party to members of the National Assembly to guide them in the way and manner their leadership emerges. And this is basically done in order to take into consideration the diverse and heterogeneous nature of the Nigerian society, so that at the end of the day, all constituent units that make the Nigerian nation state will feel part and parcel of the Nigerian project. It was against this background that after each election, the party steps in to guide members of the National Assembly by zoning this particularly offices of the presiding offices of the National Assembly, by guiding them, zoning and guiding them as to how this leadership emerges. So it is purely done in order to take into consideration the diverse nature of the Nigerian society,
but some argue,
and to give a sense of belonging to all the constituent units.
But some argue,
society.
Argue that that sense of belonging doesn't really exist because the party is micro-zoning, and not just zoning. They're not zoning to a region, but mentioning names to those attached to those regions. And that draws the question, how did the leadership of the assembly in 1992 emerge? Compare that to what it is now.
Well, even in 1992, during the SDP NRC days, the same thing happened. It is the party that, for example, zoned the presidency of the Senate to the North Central.
Not micro-zoning.
Not micro. Well, it's not micro. It was zoned to the North Central, while, for example, the speakership of the House of Representatives was zoned to the Southeast, while the presidency is in the Southwest, and then the vice presidency is in the Northeast, and incidentally from my state, in the person of Babagana Kingibe, just like what exists now. The vice presidency is from the Northeast and is from my state in the person of Vice President Kashim Shettima. So, in heterogeneous society like Nigeria, and particularly where our democracy has not yet attained the cruising altitude that we can say that our democracy has really come of age or has stabilized, there is the need for the party to step in to guide members of the National Assembly as to how the leadership emerges in order to carry along all the constituent units that make the Nigerian nation state. Well, with regard to the issue of microzoning, for example, in the Senate, what happened this time around? It was zoned to the south-south. And when it was zoned to the south-south, in consonance with Order 3, Rule 2, Sub-Rule 1, 2, and 3 of the Standing Order of the Senate, Senator Akfabio is the only ranking senator from the south-south. And that is why he contested for the office of the Senate President. So this is what actually happened. So it's not a question of micro going forward to micro zone. So I think that even the issue of micro zoning in other geopolitical zones, for example, the speakership of the House of Representatives, there is extensive consultation in the zone. It is not a question of the party just wake up one day and said, Honorable Abbas Tajuddin should be the speaker. Even after zoning to the Northwest, there are a series of consultations among members of the Northwest before it was arrived at.
So let's compare that now. But before we do that, you mentioned the zoning of the Senate and that of the House of Representatives. So were you surprised that you had candidates from other regions still going against the decision of the party to stand for election?
I'm not surprised because this is democracy in action. And in my answer to you, I said it is purely a guidance. It is purely a guidance by the party to members of the party in the national, to its members in the National Assembly. It is not an imposition because we are in a democracy and everybody has the right to aspire to whatever position that he feels like he can contribute his widow's mite to the development of Nigeria. The party cannot stop him from doing that because we are in a democracy. And then in the contestation for power is not an invitation to a tea party. So definitely you have to have all this type of
Senator Mongono, you're an experienced lawmaker. You talk about zoning, you talk about micro-zoning, and that consultations were held among the members in that zone. You, in 2015 and 2019, tried to run for the leadership of the House of Representatives. You stepped down on both occasions because you wanted to obey the party. What sort of consultation did you have with the party? Because at the time it was also zoned, but you still threw your hat in the ring. So did the party consult with you as a non-member of the zones to which those positions were zoned, or the speakership position and deputy speakership position at the time were zoned? Or did you, because the concern from a lot of your colleagues now is that while you say that those from the zones to which these positions were zoned were consulted, and then the best persons were picked. The others from other zones felt like they were not consulted.
Well, for example, let me give you my own experience in the 2015 scenario when I was an active participant. Initially, I contested for the Speaker of the House of Reps, but the party, in its wisdom, decided to zone the position of Speaker to the Southwest, and the position of Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps was zoned to the Northeast. And I contested for the position of the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps, the sole candidate for the position of Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps from the Northeast zone of the country. And because of the fact that we are in a democracy, what the party did is purely a guidance to guide members of the party to take, to carry along or to take into consideration the diverse nature of the Nigerian society. We went for the election, but Yakubu Dogara and Honorable Lasun decided not to toy the party line, threw their hat into the ring, and at the end of the day, they became victorious. I think they defeated us with about, 5 or 6 votes. And that is democracy in action. So before my emergence as the sole candidate for the position of Deputy Speaker, there is an extensive consultation amongst members from the Northeast, whereby members from the Northeast, on their own volition, after due consultation, decided to forward my name as the sole candidate that should contest for the position of Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives from my zone, being a position that was zoned to my geopolitical zone by the party.
So you do not fault Honorable Yakubu Dogara and Lasun Yusuf for what they did in 2015?
That only portrays them as people that are not being loyal to the party. It portrays them as non-loyal party men, but they are also Democrats, because in the process of contesting, they are enriching the democratic process. And we are in a democracy. What the party did, as I said earlier on, is purely a guidance, but they refuse to adhere to the guidance given by the party and threw their ring into the hat. And at the end of the day, they were victorious. And at that period in time, they were magnanimous in victory, and while we are gallant in defeat. And that is what one basic principle that we should, one basic democratic culture that we should imbibe, being magnanimous in victory and then gallant in defeat.
You know, let's talk about what happened in the House of Representatives on the 13th of June. That election was carried out in a rather different manner. You've been in the House of Representatives since 1992, came back in 2007, were there till 2023. And throughout your time, I don't believe that you ever had to do an open voting system. Even in the Senate on the 13th of June, the system was still a closed system. Secret ballot system. But in the House of Representatives, it was an open system. What do you make of that?
Well, Section 60 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, has given the House of Representatives powers to make rules and regulations guiding their proceedings. And then pursuant to Section 60 of the 1999 Constitution that gave them the power to regulate their proceedings, the House of Representatives made their rules and regulations, which is the order. So it was sequel to the amendment that was made in the rules guiding the proceedings of the House to make the balloting system open. That is why the voting that was done in the House of Representatives became an open ballot system. While in the Senate, the provision is still the secret balloting system. It was not amended.
You were part of that. You were part of that amendment
Yes.
in 2019 to amend the standing rules to allow for open voting. That's one. I just want to get your take on that, and also that of the amendment which allowed the deputy clerk of the National Assembly to preside over the inauguration of the House. What was the intent of open voting and the deputy clerk residing over the inauguration?
Well, the intendiment or the lacuna or the mischief that was sought to be cured by the House of Representatives by amending its rules from secret ballot to open ballot is to allow for pre-democratic expression. You are a representative of the people, and therefore all your actions and your deeds should be open, should be transparent, should be known to the people that gave you the mandate to represent them. It should not be secret. Your actions, your deeds, and your conduct should always be in the public domain. You should always be a subject of scrutiny by the people that gave you the mandate to represent them, because at all times you should be accountable, responsible, and responsive to their yearnings and aspirations. It was so clear for the need or the desire to cure this mischief that the rule was amended to make it an open ballot system, so that you will be accountable to your constituents.
On who you decide to lead the House of Representatives.
Yes.
But that does not apply to some major pieces of legislation.
Well, it applies because if you, for example, constitutional amendment, you do by
thumbprint. That's not
by
open.
thumbprint.
It's absolutely
yes,
different.
but when any Nigerian can apply to the House of Representatives to know where his representative or how his representative voted. You can apply.
Some believe that amendment was political.
No, it was not political.
And if it wasn't political, that it should have been extended to other voting options in the House with regards to any other legislative matter that requires
that
voting.
is why I told you, even in the House of Representatives, all the voting options are still subject to scrutiny by Nigerians or your constituents, because, as I told you earlier, the constitutional amendment process whereby we vote through an electronic voting system, you can always apply to the National Assembly to know how your representative voted, for you to guide you on how you are going to either vote him out or vote him in subsequent elections. So it has always been often, and I always support, and I will continue to champion the fact that Nigerians, the representatives, should always be subject of scrutiny by the people that gave them the mandate to represent them, and their actions should always be transparent, should be subject of scrutiny by Nigerians. And that is why the rule was amended in the House of Representatives.
Well, earlier we talked about your time, your brief stint in 1992. We compared that to your time from 2007 till date. Let's also talk about you being a member of the previous assembly, the 9th Assembly, and now the 10th Assembly. What are some of the corrections that the 10th Assembly should take note of in order to have an identity for itself? Because the narrative out there now suggests that the leadership style, the way the leadership emerged in the 10th Assembly is just about the same way that it emerged in the 9th Assembly. And with that, there are questions as to whether or not this would still be a rubber stamp assembly. It's too early to call, no doubt. But the question is, in carving an identity for itself, what are some of the areas that the 10th National Assembly should work on that the 9th failed?
Well, I think, generally speaking, and personally, one thing that I think the 10th National Assembly should do is the issue of inclusion. women representation in governance. Bills regarding women representation in governance has not scaled through in the National Assembly, in the 9th National Assembly. And one thing that I feel so personal about it, and I'm going to champion that cause, preach the gospel of that cause is the issue of women representation in governance. And I think there is a need for us to resuscitate that bill regarding constitutional amendment to bring about women inclusion and women participation in governance. Because we cannot afford to relegate about 50% of our population to the background. And because of the patriarchal nature of Nigerian society, whether it is Yoruba nation, Hausa nation, Igbo nation, or Kanuri nation, where I came from, one thing that cut across all this is the fact that we are patriarchal in nature. And therefore, like what is happening in other climes, like even coming home closer like Rwanda, we have to take deliberate steps, think out of the box to bring about women participation in governance. Because if we leave it to the normal democratic course, I think our dream to attain women participation in governance will be a mirage. In the sense that gradually and increasingly you can see women are being emasculated out of governance. For example, today, in the Senate we have only 3 women. Their number is gradually dwindling. So there is a need for us to take deliberate steps, think out of the box, just like what is happening in other climes to bring about women participation in governance, like the 50%,
there's a special one. It's the special seats.
Yes, special seats, yes.
In every state.
Yes, special seats.
You think that is something that the 10th National Assembly should push for?
Yes, and I'll be, as I told you earlier on, I voted for all the women bills in the 9th House of Representatives. I voted for it in positive, while it did not see the light of the day. But this is one thing that I'm going to vigorously champion and preach its gospel in the 10th Senate, so that it will be realized.
There's another thing that
by way of creating special seats for women, both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives.
There's another issue that is of concern to Nigerians. You're a senator now. In the House of Representatives, you didn't need to do confirmations. Now you will confirm ministers as a senator. And the question now would be, should we stick to the norm, what we're used to in the country, where the president will send a list without attaching portfolios? Or is that something that should change in 2020, going forward from now with this new administration?
I think there is a need for the president, in nominating ministers, should nominate them with their portfolio, because that will go a long way for the Senate to determine whether a square peg is coming into a square hole, whether the nominee has the wherewithal and has the capacity to discharge the function of that office for which he is being nominated. So in that regard, I hope and pray that now that we are preaching the gospel of a renewed hope and change, there is a need for Mr. President, in nominating his ministers, to nominate them along with their portfolio for the Senate to determine whether that nominee has the wherewithal and the capacity to serve in that office. And it will also assist them in asking him various questions that relate to the portfolio for which he is invited to serve. Because the Senate consists of people that have reached the pinnacle of their career, people with diverse background. For example, I'm a lawyer of over 30 years standing in the bar. I'm a former attorney general. of a state. So I will be in a better position if somebody is nominated for the position of Attorney General and Minister of Justice to ask him relevant questions for me to know whether he has the capacity or the wherewithal to discharge the function of that office or his thinking.
So if the president does that, will the Senate do away with the bow and go tradition?
Well, if the president does that, you know, the bow and go away tradition is only an honor that is being extended to members of the National Assembly. People that were members of the National Assembly were accorded this honor of bow and go because they were members of the National Assembly. All other people that were not members of all other nominees that were not members of the National Assembly are going to be subjected
but is that good enough?
To rigorous questions.
If you say, Senator Mongoro, if you say you represent the people, and you can hear the people say that they want you to ask these ministers questions, why would the Senate stick with a tradition that the people are not satisfied with?
Well,
because
that's why
the people would want to hear from the nominees. It's beyond the Senate at this point. The people want to hear the nominees speak for themselves as to what they can or cannot do, especially because a portfolio would be attached as yours requesting of the president.
That's why I said the bow and go is not of a general application.
Why must it apply to former lawmakers? What's the rationale behind it?
Well, the rationale is to accord them the respect of having served as a member of the National Assembly, because it's not something easy for you to be elected, to be given the mandate to serve as a member of the National Assembly, either in the House of Reps or in the Senate. It is assumed that you have all the qualifications and all the experience. And also...
Yeah, the Senate assumes that.
Yes.
But the people don't know that. And the people want to hear from the nominees directly.
Well, our laws are not static. And this thing is done as a matter of convention. There is nothing in our rules that states that if you are a member of the National Assembly, if you come, bow and go, it's a matter of convention. Any senator can insist that this convention should be put aside, and then all nominees should be subjected to rigorous questioning based on the portfolio for which they have been nominated. I concur with you.
Very well then. Speaking of nominations, now the president has made some appointments. It's been 3 weeks of this administration, and the president did say he would hit the ground running. You know, in his own words, he would hit the ground running. While it's been 3 weeks and it may seem as though there's a lot of pressure on the president to see how much progress is made, Nigerians want to hold him by his word because he said he wants to hit the ground running. So every action he takes would be scrutinized. What do you make of that statement of the president with regard to hitting the ground running? And do you think that in 3 weeks, the president has actually hit the ground running?
Yes, Mr. President has actually hit the ground running in the 3 weeks that he has assumed office, because of the number of very laudable and sometimes very painful decisions that he has taken in the overall national interest. For example, the withdrawal of fuel subsidy is something that has been eating deep into the Nigerian economy. It's something that has constituted a cog in the wheel of our developmental aspirations. It's something that benefits very few cabal of people. And it's something that neighboring countries benefit from. So there is no need for us to continue to hold on to fuel subsidy just for the purpose of subsidizing neighboring countries like Niger, Cameroon, and what have you. You can even see what happened when the fuel subsidy was withdrawn. Protests in Niger, protests in Cameroon against the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy. That clearly shows that we are subsidizing neighboring countries. And then coming home, it is only benefiting very few cabal. So it is a right step in the right direction. We can use this huge amount of resources, deploy them to our much needed infrastructure needs and other social sector needs like education, health, and what have you, rather than subsidizing other countries. And then it coming with a lot of palliatives that is in the mills that will soon come out for the purpose of cushioning the effect of the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy on Nigerians. And then the other issue is the single window exchange rate. It's also a right step in the right direction because it will go a long way in strengthening the naira and then also make the cost, reduce the high cost of living that we are witnessing now by reducing inflation and also making the goods and services that we produce for export much more competitive in the international markets because the value of the naira will increase. So these are very key decisions that are being taken by Mr. President, or has been taken by Mr. President, and it's a clear manifestation of the fact that Mr. President has hit the ground running. Look at the appointment of new service chiefs yesterday. It's also a clear manifestation that Mr. President wants to be in control of what is happening in the larger picture.
We'll come to that appointment, but let me quickly take you back to the issue of fuel subsidy and the concerns. Labor unions are already meeting with the president to decide or at least come to a compromise, and one of their demands is an increase in minimum wage. You would know what this means because in the 9th Assembly, the leadership of the 9th Assembly had some interventions when issues like this came up, especially with regard to the minimum wage. Now that the labor unions are demanding a new minimum wage, do you think that that is something that the president should accede to?
Well, the problem with, I'm not averse to increasing the minimum wage, but increase in minimum wage also normally comes with negative repercussions in terms of inflationary tendencies that will unleash on the economy. But government has already decided to come up with palliatives in terms of cushioning the effect of the fuel subsidy, like allowances that is going to be given to workers, provision of mass transportation systems, and what have you. These measures will also go a long way in cushioning the effect of the increase in fuel subsidy, even if the minimum wage has not been increased. But I'm not averse to increase.
But while you say you're not averse to it, you believe that the palliatives should do for now.
Well, yes, for now, let us increase the allowances of workers. Also, deploy mass transportation systems that will convey workers from their place of work back to their homes, and then the increase in the allowances and what have you, rather than going for a full-fledged increase in minimum wage that is going to trigger inflationary tendencies in the economy.
In the past,
which will end up being approbating and reprobating. In one way, you have increased the minimum wage, and in the other hand, the minimum wage that you have increased.
The last time the minimum wage was increased was in 2019.
Yes.
From then till now, there's been inflation, not triggered by any minimum wage, but based on the monetary policies of the past administration and certain actions or inactions of that government. Now, anyone listening to you would easily say that as a senator of the Federal Republic, you have allowances to address everything you ever need. So if you say that, would you put that aside and still insist that the Nigerian who earns 30,000 naira as minimum wage, that there is palliative enough to address an increase in fuel price of over 200%?
Well, that's why I said allowances.
Well, the Trade Union Congress is demanding an increase of the minimum wage from 30 to 200,000 naira. 30
to 200,000 naira?
Yes.
I don't think the Nigerian economy can... Well, I'm not an economist.
But if government cuts
I'm not an economist, but from my own little knowledge of economy, and my own little study of economy in the secondary school, I don't think the Nigerian economy can withstand a minimum wage of 200,000 naira.
But you know what many Nigerians are looking to the National Assembly to do is make sacrifice at a time like this.
What type of sacrifice?
I would ask you, with regard to the state of the economy which you speak of.
Well, we are representing the people of Nigeria.
Would you take a pay cut?
We are ready to make any sacrifice.
Would you take a pay cut? Do you think that the pay of the national lawmaker should be cut?
I can take a fair cut.
But beyond you, do you think that the pay of National Assembly members should be cut in line with realities? I think it would be easier, don't you agree, for you to speak on perhaps inflation, as you say, with regard to the increase in minimum wage.
What is my take-home pay as a member of National Assembly? As a member of the House, I'm not taking what I'm going to earn as a senator for now, so I don't know how much I'm going to earn as a senator. But as a member of the House of Representatives, how much do I earn monthly, cumulatively?
Annually?
Not monthly. I cannot say annually. Monthly is about, is it 600,000?
Would you take a pay cut for that?
I can take a fair cut for that. And then the other thing that I want Nigerians to appreciate is that because of the young nature of our democracy, and because of the fact that whenever there is military intervention in our body polity, the first casualty is the National Assembly. The National Assembly has not been allowed to grow, to have all the institutional capacity and the wherewithal to operate. And Nigerians also don't appreciate the role of the National Assembly as that of making laws for the peace, order, and good governance of the country. If you look at the demands that is made to members of the National Assembly, you'll be surprised. You are expected to attend all burials. You are expected to attend naming ceremonies, all the nooks and crannies of your constituency. You are expected to take the medical bills of your constituents. You are expected to pay the school fees bills of your constituents and what have you. A lot of expectation on members of the National Assembly. And we are part and parcel of the society, and you know all those things.
Just before we go, we're almost out of time now, but I recall that in the 9th Assembly, you were one of the lawmakers that called for the removal of the service chiefs. The Senate did the same thing, but the president took a while before he made that adjustment. Also, lawmakers called for the removal of the NSA, who served 8 years under President Muhammadu Buhari. Now we have a new president, and he's replaced the NSA in the person of Nuhu Ribadu, former EFCC chairman. However, there are concerns in some quarters, especially the military quarters, just before the appointment, that he was a junior officer at the time, and he didn't attain the highest rank to superintend over a certain cadre of military men whom NSA. He would now be under him as NSA. What's your take on that? Well,
first and foremost, I want to say that the Buhari administration deserves a pat on the back, particularly with regard to the issue of security as it concerns the Northeast. In the sense that before the coming of Buhari administration, even in the wildest of my dreams, I cannot think of going to my hometown of Monguno. But today I can go to Monguno and sleep with my 2 eyes closed. It's as a result of the political will that is given by that administration, as well as the sacrifice, the zeal, and the determination exhibited by the Nigerian military that brought about the what I can say as the bringing down of the Boko Haram insurgency. So the government deserves a pat on the back. With regard to the issue of your question whether Nuhu Ribadu, who is a junior officer, I think he retired as an AIG, can be a national security advisor to superintend or to supervise the other parts of the military architecture and whatever. That appointment is not, is purely political in nature. It's purely political. The office of the National Security Advisor is an office that is purely political in nature. It's not something that is supposed to be a command hierarchical structure appointment. With regard to their hierarchical command structure...
Do you think political is the right word?
Yes, it's political. It's political in the sense that it is at the whims and caprices of Mr. President. The appointment to the office.
Based on competence.
Yeah, but he has the competence, he has the security background. He was a retired police officer that has attained the rank of an AIG. Once you attain the rank of an AIG, you are even qualified to be an Inspector General of Police based on the desire of Mr. President. So he has all the experiences in the police, has all the security background to be appointed as a National Security Advisor.
Senator Mohammed Monguno, I thank you very much for your time on Political Paradigm. And I wish you well as you've moved from the House to the Senate now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm grateful.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure is mine as well. And that's Political Paradigm today. I've been speaking with the senator representing Borno North Senatorial District in the Senate. He was a member of the House of Representatives in 1992, 2007 to 2023 when he moved to the Senate. Thank you for your time as well. Remember to catch this episode and others by simply going to YouTube and searching Political Paradigm. Remember to also go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.